Hey everybody, it's Professor Malat, and I'm here to talk about some of the things we will be digging into in week three. Week three, we start to explore the aspects of narrative writing, since the first essay that you are going to be writing is kind of a personal narrative that explores the theme of choosing your major or your career path. Now, I know that many of you are already in your chosen career and you're just pursuing your college education to maybe advance in your career. So you're already in the right direction, right? You already know what you want to do. You just want to do more of it. So for those of you who are already established in your careers, it's not going to be so much career exploration as what led you to this point, right? What is your story? How did you come to be where you are right now? And so, in many ways, this will be very similar to the introductory essay that you've written, but it's not exactly the same, right? You're answering the question, why am I here? How did I get here? So, in this personal narrative, you're kind of exploring a little bit later. For those of you who aren't sure what your major is yet, or what you want to do in life, right? You might be a little bit younger, and you're just testing the waters of academia, right? Testing the waters of college education. This is an opportunity for you to start exploring what you might want to major in or what you might want to do in life. So, I know this is kind of designed more for people who are in that realm right now, but for those of you, again, who are already have some life experience and you already have some work experience and you're just looking to climb up the ladder in your career, you can change things a little bit with the explorations and the pre-writing so that it suits where you are in life right now. So there are a few resources that I have provided for you this week. I'm going to share our Canvas page so you can see what I'm talking about. And then I'll talk a little bit about each of those resources. So if we go down to the readings, we have the narrative essay handout, which I have a completely different video that walks through that and explains the narrative essay assignment that will be due in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? 1 week? This is week three. So it'll be due, the rough draft will be due in week four with the final revision due in week five. So that's one thing that will be treated in a different video. So the two resources that I have included for you to read, and I'm going to preface this with saying one is much longer than the other. The narration one, I think, would probably be the most helpful in helping you understand what narration is all about. So, yeah, it's kind of long, but again, they have these wonderful little boxes in the middle, especially for this one down kind of at the middle. Or 2/3 of the way down the page, writing at work. And it helps to apply the practical aspects of why narrative writing can be important to those of you in work. Whether you're applying for jobs or whether you're maybe looking for a promotion, it's always good to have a compelling narrative to understand your why, right? How have you gotten here? What are some of the issues that you've had to deal with? And this can help prepare you for job interviews. It can help you in preparing to write a cover letter, or doing some other kind of career narrative writing. So I want what we're doing here to be very practical for you. It's not just we're writing any old sort of narrative. We have a real focus here that's hopefully is practical for those of you who are in this course. They also have tips and exercises that you can do. You're not required to do them, but take some time to read through that. And I'll actually do a little bit of a lecture on this reading as well as the other materials that I have. We also have memoir or personal narrative. As I said, this one is a bit longer, but if you're really interested in memoir writing or personal narrative writing, I recommend going through this at least a couple of the pages, right? There are several sections of this chapter for this textbook. At least read through the introduction and maybe the first 2 to 3 sections, right? You don't have to read every single one unless you're, more than interested in reading these things. But again, I don't think it's necessary for you to have to read both of them, at least one or the other. And then we have a video from Andrew Stanton, The Clues to a Great Story. I just think this is a really interesting video, and this pertains to the discussion board assignment that you will be doing that's due on Sunday. So make sure that you watch that video. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of these in a moment. So let me close that, and then I will share this here, right? So we have the memoir or personal narrative. And if you think of narrative as kind of having a purpose, right? It's personal writing. A personal narrative is personal writing. It's a little bit different than the more academic writing that we will be doing later in the semester. So the purpose of it is not only it helps to perpetuate experiences, but it can share meaningful lessons. Often narratives are entertaining to the audience. It can also be a way to preserve history, right? We have biographies and autobiographies of historical figures, and that's a wonderful way, a first-person account of history. It can also be a way to seek acclaim, pass down wisdom, a method for you to reflect on your own personal experiences. You can also connect with an audience, convey humor, passion, and fears, and your beliefs, which is illustrated in Stanton's video, the Tales to, or the Clues to a Great Story. It can also be a way to provide catharsis. Now, that might not be a familiar word for many of you. Catharsis is just kind of an outpouring of emotion, right? It can be a cleansing experience. So narrative writing can be very emotional. It can evoke an emotional response within the reader. And essentially, it's a way of trying to connect with your audience. So we have some definition and similarities as well between memoir and personal writing or personal narrative. Personal narrative tends to be nonfiction writing, yeah, of course. It recounts an event from life, it tells a story, and includes memories and anecdotes. Similarly, memoir is also nonfiction writing, but it's more of a first-person version of a specific time period or a specific event, right? So memoir is very similar to autobiography. Autobiography is written by oneself, right? It's not just a biography written by somebody else, but an autobiography is written by oneself about one's life and kind of goes through chronologically. So again, they both have in common this sharing of lived experiences. Sometimes there is an overarching theme and purpose. There is a traditional narrative arc. If you think of narrative as being storytelling, then we have exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. So that makes for a very compelling story. Both personal narrative and memoir have that first person point of view, and they tend to both have a narrow focus. There are some components of narrative writing. And this is from that first reading on narrative, talking about the rhetorical modes. So that reading explains how rhetorical modes are just ways to communicate effectively. This also is the writer's purpose, where they can determine the modes that they use to communicate effectively. And then there is a variety of modes within one essay. Narrative writing, again, because it's storytelling, personal narrative, and then not personal narrative. So we have this division between factual and fictional. Of course, biographies, memoirs, personal narratives, those are factual, based on real events. Then we have fictional, right? We have that whole genre of fiction, made up stories. So we have novels, short stories, and that kind of thing. And then the distinction is based on the writer's purpose. So if you want to tell a story about yourself, you're not going to make up things, right? Because that would almost be unethical. You want to present yourself in a factual and truthful light. There is structure, of course, to stories, tend to have a chronological order, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So there are these transition words. And in that reading, you'll see a whole chart of different types of transitional words. Of course, stories have plots, right? Even your personal story will have some kind of a plot. And of course, there will also be characters, right? We have minor characters, those people in the background, and of course we have the main characters or the protagonist. So perhaps you have heard, be the protagonist in your own story, right? Be the main character. Don't be a minor character. You are the main character in your life, right? Typically, there is conflict, a primary problem that the main character has to overcome or resolve. And often there is also a theme, right? The ultimate message, it might be explicit or implicit. So there are some writing process and tips related to narrative writing. Of course, you want to know your audience and your purpose. So understanding the task for the writing assignment is key here. Who is going to be your audience? Who are you going to direct your writing to? Hopefully, I am not the primary audience, right? There should be a bigger audience in mind besides just me, right? Because your classmates are also going to be, you will have at least one classmate reading your writing as well. So in the writing process, of course, we have brainstorming of ideas, we have free writing. You might want to sketch out major events and include some kind of a plot summary of how you are going to go through your narrative. And narrative writing also relies on strong sensory details. Versus different kinds of academic writing that we will be doing later in the course. This is where you can really shine and bring in a lot of those sensory details to make those scenes come alive, right? So sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch, of course. You want a strong introduction to grab the reader's interest right off the bat. And of course, you want to have some kind of conclusion that resolves conflict or evokes theme. So with this narrative that I am assigning to you that will be due in week 4 as a rough draft, it does have some different aspects. So it's not like a real personal narrative where you're telling a story of your life. Instead, you're homing in on a specific aspect of your life. And so we're talking and exploring about major or career, right? So you can tell your career story, or you can tell your story of where you think you might want to go with your major, right? Why you're here in college. So in this way, it kind of dovetails with that introductory essay that you wrote for me back in week 1. Why are you here, right? So here is your opportunity to get more personal and to go on a deeper dive, to explore your motivations for why you're here and what you want to do in life. So hopefully that makes sense. There are some things from key lessons from storytelling experts, Andrew Stanton. I'm not going to pull up this part of the slide, and I am also not going to pull up the chapter outline since we already looked at the page for that longer English composition text from the Humanities Libre? I can't remember. So hopefully this helps you a little bit with your understanding of personal narrative and why it's important and why it's relevant for what's going on. So the assignment that we have this week that we'll be focusing on is a pre-writing exercise for that narrative that I went over in a separate video where I walk you through this narrative as a handout. So this will be due on Sunday, the 14th, and this is just kind of brainstorming for your papers. So you can take a lot of the ideas that you've already discussed, maybe in a discussion board, maybe in that introductory essay, and start answering here. So you can brainstorm the various aspects of the major or career you are considering for your essay. So again, if you're already established in your career, I don't want you to start thinking in a different direction. You can stay in that direction. Like, what more do I want from my career? Why am I pursuing a college education to further my career? That kind of thing. Or maybe, you can go from your past experiences of being in a career path that was just okay, and now you want to change careers, right? That happens a lot to people who, after several years of a certain work experience, they might realize that they want something better or something more. I went through it myself, and much later in life realized that I wanted to get an advanced degree so that I could teach in college. So it's never too late to switch gears. It's never too late to reconsider what you want to do. So those of you who are still in the, testing the academic waters phase and thinking about a major, consider the following aspects: your personal interest. Why are you interested in this major? Job opportunities. So again, you can go back to the work that you did with exploring the Hamilton Project and the information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and what career paths are available within this major. Transferability. How easily can you switch to a different field with that major? If you want to focus on a career, consider the following aspects: salary. What's the average salary? Level of education or skills, job opportunities, advancement, personal interest, and meaningfulness. I know several of you wrote about wanting to do something where it's meaningful to you. It's not just a job, right? But a vocation. And then, of course, location. Where are these jobs typically located? Do you have to think about or anticipate moving from where you already are, right? And will that be worth it? Will that be a better return on investment? The format, you can choose to write in paragraph form. You can create a bullet point list or a numbered list. You can do question and answer if you want to. It's really up to you. You can submit it as a text entry or upload a document. Again, that's really up to you whether you want to have something like a hard copy that you have in your files to look back on, or if you just want to write it as a text entry. So again, this is just a pre-writing assignment. It's low key. There is no wrong way to do it. So if you have any, if you need me to clarify something more for you, I'm happy to do that. Let me see what else we have. Then we have the discussion board. So this is just applying what you've learned from the Andrew Stanton video and discussing it a little bit amongst yourselves. So what do you think he means when he talks about the rhetorical device of unifying 2 + 2 in the video? What do you think he means by spine? And then think about Stanton's personal story. What is his spine? What is his, discuss the point in the video where Stanton reveals his spine to the viewer. And if you want to, use examples or quotes from the reading or the video to help support your answers. So your initial post is due on Sunday, September 14th, and then we have that follow-up response that's due for 2 peers on Wednesday, September 17th. I will hold off on grading any aspect of the discussion board until after Wednesday, September 17th. So I won't have any kind of grade for this assignment until Thursday, the 18th at the very earliest, right? So please get your posts in a timely manner. That way we can have that discussion between peers, so that you have responses in a timely manner as well. Okay. So the rest of the resources, again, I am in the process of recreating and re-recording my videos, so you don't have recycled material. Every once in a while I have to do that. So this video that you're watching right now, of course, is right here. I just haven't edited it or uploaded it yet. And then I will be recording a new narrative essay handout overview video where I walk you through this narrative essay handout. Another thing I want to remind you of, optional materials. I think almost every week I have optional grammar review for you. So if there is something that you feel like you're not quite sure how it works, like semicolons and colons, I do post weekly topics for you that you can go and review yourself. I used to do a grammar quiz, and based on feedback from previous classes, they felt that it wasn't very helpful to be quizzed on the material, but at least having the material available for you to review. Also, if you struggle with grammar, Grammarly can be a fantastic website, and later on in the semester, you'll see that I've pulled some resources from Grammarly itself, but it can be a really great resource. You should also be looking. Hopefully this week we will have some announcements and perhaps a welcome video from our embedded tutor. So we do have a tutor who is connected with this class, a tutor from the Academic Writing Center at UC Claremont. And they will be happy to work with you if you, again, are struggling with any aspect of writing. You can work individually with the tutor through email, through video. They are there available to help you. And yeah, so be on the lookout for that announcement, as well as I said, possibly a welcome video from our tutor as well. So if you have any questions in the meantime, you know how to get in touch with me. Send me an email, and I'm usually pretty quick to respond. I do apologize for my overzealousness in some of the grading as I get used to the discussion board stuff, because it's split up into initial post and then response. So I apologize for being overzealous there and trying to get on top of grading, as well as the generated emails through Canvas to remind students that they may need to submit an assignment. For whatever reason, there was a glitch. I don't know if it will continue to be a glitch or if it's always been a glitch, and this is the first semester somebody's actually said something about it. But I apologize if you were one of those students who got an email generated through Canvas saying that you did not submit an assignment. I know there were 2 students, and I did reach out to you individually to apologize for that oversight. I will make sure to double check the names of students who are on that list that's generated by Canvas gradebook, to ensure that they are not mistakenly being targeted as not having completed something when they actually submitted the assignment. So yeah. All right. Have a fantastic week, everybody. And I look forward to seeing your pre-writing responses to see where you're heading. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.